Well, they say that entrepreneurship is the ultimate personal development journey. And I have to agree with that, right? I mean, anybody who has started a business knows that entrepreneurship reveals your true self, reveals your true form. So there's a lot of wisdom right there.
And I remember the last day of my corporate job when I was 24 years old. And I remember as soon as I walked out of that building, I felt like 50 pounds lighter. I went, oh my gosh, the chains are broken. I'm starting my own business, and it's going to be a journey.
Unfinished Business Podcast Show with your host, David Sliman.
Welcome back to Unfinished Business, everybody. And I have a real treat for you all today. We have a guest that embodies the word transformation, confidence, self-leadership, growth. Tara Lafon Gooch is not only a speaker, a great coach, an author, someone who was on TEDx, is going to do it again, Forbes, has her own company, her own branding company. She is just a person who understands what it takes to not only grow personally, but also professionally. And I'm really excited to jump into this conversation today, hearing her story on personal growth, how can we become a better version of our previous self, and how can we become more confident in ourselves? We're going to talk about that today. So without further ado, Tara, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So listen, you've experienced some profound transformation as an entrepreneur. I love diving into this. You changed your life in going into entrepreneurship, and what really triggered that for you? And if you can give a little bit of background to our guests about yourself, that'd be great as well.
Well, they say that entrepreneurship is the ultimate personal development journey. And I have to agree with that, right? I mean, anybody who has started a business knows that entrepreneurship reveals your true self, reveals your true form. So there's a lot of wisdom right there. So this journey started for me fully in 2022. So I recently dropped out of my corporate sales director role. No plan, nothing. Now, I don't recommend that to your listeners. I think your listeners are a lot smarter than I was, right? But I was just at that point, that juxtaposition in life where didn't feel like I had another choice. At the time, I was really suffering from depression, anxiety, questioning my worth, my purpose. Do I have a purpose? And I want to start off by saying, like I said, I dropped out, gave my notice. I had nothing. So this will be inspiration for people. I didn't have a car because I had a company car. I didn't have a computer because I had a company computer. I didn't have a phone because I had a company phone. Are you guys following me, right? So I started at literal ground zero. The good thing that I did know is because I have a sales background and I'm really good with marketing, I knew how to create something from nothing, which is entrepreneurship.
Yes, it is. Wow. So just like that, was there a breaking point though for you? And I want to, because there might be some listeners out there right now who are just that identity thing, right? Like your identity is tied to this organization. I mean, you talked about your phone, your car, your day in the life. Like, was there something that pivotally where you were like, this is it, I'm done? Or was it just a buildup?
Oh, I forgot to mention insurance too. That was gone. Yeah, just to top it all off, right? Why not? So I think it was a gradual progression. It started way before then, of course, right? It started actually when I was in college and I was chasing someone else's version of success. So, I had gone through college. I've got my MBA. I have a degree in business analytics. Haven't used it. That's another story. But I all the time, looking back, as far as I can remember, I was chasing someone else's version of success. So the corporate world is, I think a lot of young people are trying to climb to the top of that corporate ladder in some kind of way. And they look to that as a version of success. And maybe that looks like the American dream, right? Entrepreneurship was never in my horizons whatsoever. I was never one of those people that thought, oh, I can do this. No, that, like, again, going back to, we talked about no confidence. I didn't feel like I had confidence at this time. So, it started a long time ago, but it came to just this culmination point of, again, feeling an immense lack of purpose, questioning my worth. And a part of me, and it was a little tiny part, I'll be honest, it was a tiny, I call it a tiny seed within that said, you know what, you're made for more. You can do something. And I just tried.
How did you feel like, because I can relate to this, okay? But when you actually, like, it was your last day, you gave your notice, you were done. Like, how did you feel at that point? Can you go back to that?
I was angry.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was angry, right? I felt taken advantage of
Okay.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Kind of a victim mentality, right? So I'm painting a real picture here because I'm not going to paint a false picture. I'm painting a real
Yeah.
picture. This is how I felt. So I felt a little bit like a victim, like, oh, I've worked so hard and I've done so much. I've put so much effort in and nobody's realized it, and all this stuff. And all of that is true, but it's true based on my perspective.
First,
And
yes.
that's important to always remember. Everything's true based on a perspective. So that's why I call entrepreneurship the ultimate personal development journey, because it reveals who your true self is, who your true form is. And I realized for so much of my life that I was blaming outside circumstances, outside factors, outside things, people, organizations, whatever, for my own shortfalls.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was pretty intense
It,
work
it
I had
is.
to do.
I go back. My experience was a little bit different. And again, we're all humans, right? That's the beauty of this, is we're all wired differently. And I remember the last day of my corporate job when I was 24 years old, and I remember as soon as I walked out of that building, I felt like 50 pounds lighter. And that,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, the chains are broken. I'm starting my own business, and like, it's going to be a journey, right? So again, everybody's different, but that is the perspective is, but then what did you do with that frustration? You channeled it,
Channeled it.
channeled it.
Yep, I channeled it. And, at this time, I wasn't 100% sure what I was going to do.
Okay.
And I didn't have a lot of resources, right? We're talking no car. What was I going to do? So I worked with what I had. And I think that's important. You just start where you are. Don't compare yourself to someone else's journey who's probably 10 years your senior. Just start with what you can start with. And I wasn't really sure, what are my talents? What are my skills? What are my abilities? What am I good at?
Yeah.
So for me, it was started with observation of people, and understanding what do people need to succeed? What does that formula to success look like?
Yeah.
And I realized one of the big parts that I was missing in my formula to success was the confidence piece, right? The confidence piece. So I had these technical skills and knowledge, but what I was lacking are some of the interpersonal. So I went heavy on interpersonal and immersed myself in that. And we can call it emotional intelligence. We can call it personal development. Learning how to be a leader of myself, and then observing others, and just being an observer and watching taught me so much about entrepreneurship and how to run a successful business, probably more than any other course or program I've ever taken.
What were some of the things that you did on the interpersonal? If you can give some examples of some of the things that really impacted you to develop that interpersonal strength. And it's a journey, right? I mean, we still, as humans, we always, there's, I don't care how confident you are, there's always that point where there's going to be some confidence. But in the earlier foundational stages of this, what were some of the things you did?
Well, it was, I'd never really had a relationship with gratitude at that point, right? So it was learning about gratitude. I went to a networking group. I had never gone to an online networking group before. Right now, I go to one, I think, every other day.
Okay.
But back then, I had never been to one. There's always a first one. So in 2022, I went to my first online business to business networking group to see what is this entrepreneurs thing all about, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know anyone else on the call. Most people were from Texas. I'm in North Carolina. I didn't know anybody. But somebody who was a guest speaker on that program shared a book. And she said, this book changed my life. It's called The Science of Getting Rich. It was published in 1910 by Wallace D. Wattles. And she said a couple of things from the book. And she said specifically about gratitude. For whatever reason, that really, really captured my attention at that moment
Yeah.
and anchored me. I read the book, couldn't put it down, got the book on audio. Since then, I've listened to it about 70 times. Literally one of those books, right?
Yes.
And immersed myself in this like gratitude as a lifestyle thing. Never before. Okay. So this was completely new. Well, if it wasn't for that one networking meeting, I wouldn't have developed a relationship with gratitude. I wouldn't have become the person I am today. And I wouldn't have written my book. And it wouldn't have developed into a TEDx talk because that TEDx talk is called Gratitude, the Foundation of Confidence. It all started because of that one networking call that I didn't know anybody on.
Motion creates motion.
Yes, it does.
It really does. It's momentum starts by you, listeners, moving,
Yeah.
putting yourself in motion. And whether that's working out or whether that's going to a networking event or whether that's, you just got to put yourself in motion.
That's right.
That's so great. It's so great. You said something earlier too that I want to hit on. It's amazing to me, like the difference between really great leaders and good leaders or even below par leaders is this thing that you said earlier, which is self-awareness.
Yeah.
You said you were observing, right? You were observing, and it's amazing to me sometimes that people who the biggest difference for me, great leaders are ones who are just self-aware. And I don't know if you want to call that confidence or what you want to call it, but people who are more self-aware actually are more confident just because they have it. I don't even think they do it on purpose. I think it just comes with the territory, right? So being self-aware and it's not something you can flip on and flip. Some people naturally can do it, but you have to work at it too. There's a discipline to it. And how big does self-awareness play in the people that you work with, you coach, your clients, all of that? I'd love to hear your perspective.
Self-awareness is, that I've heard this mentioned before that only 15% or so of the population is self-aware.
Wow.
And at first we say, wow. And then we say, oh, that makes sense. Right? Oh, yeah, you're right. It's probably even less.
Actually, you're right. Triggering.
So self-awareness is huge to success. It's huge in self-leadership, right? And it's huge for leadership with others. There's a great quote that I often reference from the Carnegie Institute of Technology. And it says that 85% of our financial success in our lifetime is due to three things: our ability to communicate, negotiate, and lead. So shockingly, only 15% of our financial success in our lifetime is actually due to technical knowledge. But what do we do as a society, right? We focus on the 15% and wonder why we're not getting the 85% reward. So with the communication and the negotiation and the leadership, that's 85% of that encompassing factor. Well, that's self-awareness. In order to communicate with somebody effectively, you have to be self-aware, right? In order to lead, you have to be self-aware. So it all starts with that emotional intelligence and that self-awareness with ourselves before we can lead others. It's crucial.
It's crucial. Just well said. And play that back. Like if you're listening to this, just digest that, listen to it again, digest it, and then listen to it again. That is a great perspective on self-awareness. And you should listen to that back. Okay. I seen that you mentioned the first time that you stepped on stage to do a keynote speaking event, and it changed you. Now, we were just talking about this, but talk to us about that experience. And it seemed like a very pivotal moment in your career, and I want to hear about that and our guests to listen in on that perspective.
Absolutely. So for the longest time in my life, speaking in general was something that absolutely terrified me. And that's not uncommon, right? I think it's the world's greatest fear. It's called claustrophobia, where most people literally would rather die. They have less of a fear of death than they do of stepping on stage, which is unfathomable, right? But it's very common, and I was under that same category. So in 2022, I decided, you know what? I'm going for all things growth. Let's do the growth engine, whatever that looks like. And I made a vision board. Never made a vision board before. Some people call them corny. I think they work. Do with what you want. But I created a vision board and I put public speaking in the front center of it. And it was just a lady that I found on Google, and she was speaking in front of a whole audience. Then I started connecting up with people on LinkedIn who were professional speakers and just started, again, observing and asking questions. One gentleman decided to kind of take me under his wing a little bit and show me the ropes, right? And 3 months later, just a couple months later, after I started my introduction with him, he called me and he said, I don't know what you're doing in 2 days, but if you want to do a keynote, somebody threw their back out and can't fly, and you're close enough. Would you want to do it? And I said, I could have said no because I didn't have anything prepared. I don't know anything at this point, right? And it's 2 days notice, and I had to drive 5 hours to get there. And I said yes, because you do it. That's the thing, when you ask for something, you have to be really open to receiving it, and it's not necessarily going to be at your perfect time. And I said yes, and I did it. I was terrified. I had about 20 minutes to prepare slides, and then I practiced on my drive because it was 5 hours. It's perfect. Well, I delivered a speech. I was, again, terrified. I think I did. I cried in the bathroom before I went, and I just did it, right? I'm going to be, again, totally truthful here. When I went on the stage, it was a complete and utter transformation. I went from literally crying in the bathroom before I went up there to stepping on stage, and I noticed something. I noticed people leaning in, their body language changed. They were writing notes. People were busily looking for their pen and really leaning in and making eye contact. And I realized that, holy cow, I'm actually good at this thing. Shocked me. After that speech, I walked away with about $10,000 worth of client contracts.
Wow.
Was not expecting it. And I realized I'm actually really good at this thing. We never know until we jump, folks.
Yeah. You gotta jump sometimes and take those opportunities. Listen, here's the other thing, and I say this in past podcast shows as well. Whether it's you're starting a business, whether it's you're going to do speaking event for the first time, whether it's going to go on your first sales call, whatever it's going to be, there's never going to be a perfect time. Okay. If you think that the stars are going to align, right, Tara? Because I know you're laughing about this. If you think that the stars are going to align, the moon's going to be in the perfect spot, the sun's going to come up, it's going to be it's not. There is always going to be something in the way, something wrong, something not perfect, and realistically, sometimes those can even become the excuses of why not to do it.
Yep.
But I've
Yeah.
had this on my computer for years, and I heard this speech years ago. It's called "Just Do It,"
Mm-hmm.
and gosh, who did that speech? I have to think about it. But Art Williams, I think his name was. Fantastic speech. Did this thing like in 1984, and I still watch it like at least 2 or 3 times a year. But it's like "Just Do It" speech, and you do. Sometimes you just got to do it.
Just gotta do it.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, at this time, I didn't have a car. I want to keep reiterating that because I'm just going to take away all excuses. I didn't have a car. I had to rent a car. My glasses broke the day before. I had to super glue them back together. I think sometimes, we want something really bad,
Yeah.
and then forces come into our life in one way or another that sees how bad do you want this, right? But you just have to keep on course and keep doing it. And yeah, I didn't have a car. I figured it out. You just have to figure it out.
Just got to figure it out. You got to go. And the other thing is, just like you talked about earlier, Tara, like the universe will work with you
Yeah.
to bring things into when you're open to receive and you put things out there, it will happen. So you got to be ready to go. And I think that was an important point. Listen, many people struggle with confidence, especially stepping in either to new roles or, like I said, doing new business. You work with a lot of professionals. You've worked with a lot of professionals. What personal fears do you feel like are the most common to overcome?
Yeah. So my work is primarily with CEOs, super high achieving people that are even surgeons, doctors, right? That's like my typical clientele. People, you would be surprised at the lack of confidence people have, even at the high levels that I've worked with. And part of that reason is, as high achievers, so much of what people tend to do is rely on external validation for their own approval. This is a huge detriment to not only yourself, but everyone who's watching you and the other person. It's not valuable for them either. The other person doesn't want you in their circle because you want their approval. If they knew that, they'd be like horrified, right? This is so important because, again, it kind of goes back to what I was saying about my version of success. What does that look like? So often in our life, we create this path that's not even made for us because we're so reliant on external validation and approval for our own happiness. And, we tend to realize this when, we get on the cover of Forbes or something like that, or we get another degree, and then 5 minutes later we say, okay, that's cool. What's next? And you're not even satisfied with that thing because a part of you is lacking the confidence within that you never actually developed because you're waiting on someone else's approval. So key. So key.
It really, again, great feedback. And I think that's another reason why people don't even take the chances to go back to what we talked about about starting a business is the fear of judgment, right? The fear of people judging them. It's either one of two things, either judgment or failure. That's it. And let me tell you, it's the failures that are going to make you a success. And that's what it comes down to. You show me any good leader and I will show you failures and challenges and roadblocks and things that they've persevered through, because that is really what builds the strength of a professional or personally too. It doesn't even, not even professionally, but personally as well. And they always intertwine. So I want to switch to branding a little bit, okay? Because this is, your specialty in branding. What are some for whether you're a high level? I know you work with high level executives, entrepreneurs, building brands, or if somebody's starting out their brand. I'm going to flip that a little bit too. If someone's trying to they're really confident in their space, they feel good about it. What are some recommendations you can make in trying to establish just basic things? Let's start level one here of establishing a brand.
Absolutely. So if you're starting a business, your brand is your business card, right? It's the first impression people have of you. So here's what I know about a customer's journey, right? In 2025 and beyond, before someone decides to do business with you, they look you up on Google. So if you want to get an impression of what your brand is right now, I encourage everybody to do this. Go ahead and Google your name. What comes up? What comes up? Are you on the top square of Google or are you somewhere on page 5? And there's a joke in marketing that if you want to hide a dead body, put them on page 2 or 3 of Google, right? That's the joke in marketing, but it's true. So you have to be on that top result of Google. And I call it the top 1%. If you're not at the top 1%, then someone else is. And, there's a quote from a book that changed my perspective of how I think about branding, personal branding and company branding. And that's Grant Cardone's The 10X Rule.
Mm-hmm.
In that book, he says, your whole life, you've been told that you need to be the best athlete, the best student, the best dancer, the best whatever. But the reality is that if you're not the best known, nobody can do business with you. Nobody can find you.
Yeah.
So it's not about being the best. And I want people to understand that because right out of the jump, when you start a business, you're not going to be the best. You're not because nobody knows you yet. But you have to establish that well-known factor. And there is something called know, like, and trust. And this is really big. And I don't want anybody listening to this to think, I just need to be the best. I don't need to be well known or I don't need to be liked. You do because people buy from other people. So the best thing that anyone can do, whether you're a corporate executive or an entrepreneur or somebody in somewhere in between, is to build your personal brand and that digital real estate that I'm talking about. Again, you have to be known. You have to be on that first page of Google.
Yeah. I was in the B2B marketing space for a long time, a lot of years. Those are the organizations that I built. They were B2B geared. And I can recall through years of doing this, there would be that location where they open up a new location, right? And they got this elaborate furniture. They've got
Yeah.
chandeliers. They got this up, and then they don't have any money to market themselves.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't care how good this place looks, how great you are in your space. If you can't get the message out there and get people either contacting you or them coming in the door, I mean, what is it worth? So make sure if you're a business owner that you're putting aside dollars and cents, and I say cents in your head, to really put your brand out there.
Yeah.
And I think, Tara, you make a great point on this. And that's my translation to this. But it's really huge. It's really huge.
It's your first impression. And, there's a science to this. Have you ever heard of a second impression? I don't think I ever call a second. I've never heard of a second impression, right? And it only takes just a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
So, whether that's a LinkedIn profile or your website, someone takes about 5 seconds to make an instant judgment on, again, do I like this person? Can I trust this person? Should I do business with this person?
Yeah.
And if we don't have the branding and you don't have the presence, the answer is going to be a no on at least one factor. And that's all you need for somebody not to make that transition from being an onlooker to being a client. So it's huge. And we never know. really how many missed opportunities we get.
Yeah. Yeah. And you got to climb that ladder. Listen, you've been on Forbes, you've TEDx talked, which I want to talk about that in a minute. Cause I have that vision of myself doing a TEDx talk. Like that's going to happen. And I'm putting that out there. But, what strategies help you position yourself, as that thoughtful leader, and that it actually probably comes back to what you just said now that I put the question out there. But talk to me about that process and that transition.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and again, Forbes, I think I've been in Forbes 3 times. Once was a cover and then the others were articles. Um and LA Weekly, Fox News, couple of, TV media outlets and those type of things. It's a relentless pursuit of staying consistent.
Great word.
I never give up. You'll never see the end of me. I'm pretty confident in saying that. I like to think of the analogy of a boulder. And if you take a trickle of water, it looks impossible. How is that water going to do anything to that boulder? Well, water moves, the boulder doesn't. So all the water has to do is keep being ruthlessly consistent. And the thing about consistency is nothing stands in the way of it. Nothing. It's not possible because nature favors things in motion. And you talked about that earlier. So it's about being ruthlessly consistent and going after big dreams. So when I was talking to the CEO of Topgolf last night,
Yes.
I asked him, I said, what is the thing, the big thing? And he said, you know what? It's in the first chapter of his book. It's to not stop dreaming. So his key was every single day he takes a moon shot, what he calls a moon shot. It could be calling the CEO of Nike. It could be any of these things, right? And there's been a lot of documented cases like this. Sarah Blankley from Spanx. Everybody asked her, how did you get into Bloomingdale's? That's crazy. You were in your garage yesterday. Now you're in Bloomingdale's? She said, I picked up the phone.
Oh,
I
yes.
picked up the phone. The thing about it is we can doubt yourselves to death. But until you pick up the phone and put yourself out there and say, I do own this space. I am the best. They just don't know me yet, but they will. And then once they will, they won't forget you. And you have to have that level of confidence
Yeah.
as a CEO, as an entrepreneur. Otherwise, you're not going to be known.
Right. And then, I remember to a certain point after I did my first company, there was a sense of this imposter syndrome in the beginning, right? Like, can you relate? You're shaking your
Oh,
head.
yeah.
Right? Like,
Everybody. Yeah.
right. I guess everybody, right? On that level. And then I think it just comes back to the word confidence. I started settling in my skin a little bit more. And the more that I expose myself to different leaders and different people who, were quote unquote successful, the more I realized that, yeah, I do belong here because of the things that I've done. And more importantly, having that self-awareness of the people out. And listen, there's real impressive people that I've been around. There's other people who I haven't. But for any of that imposter syndrome, what advice do you have for anybody facing that kind of doubt?
Wow. I can get spiritual or very pragmatic.
Oh, do both.
All right.
You're it.
So I think, for me, it's a very spiritual thing. I believe that I was created for a reason, a purpose. And if you believe you're created for a reason or purpose too, then you have a moral obligation to fulfill it. Listen, I heard a different definition of procrastination the other day
Yeah.
that shook me up. And it said procrastination is the arrogant assumption that God owes you more time to do the work you did not do yesterday.
Right. Play that back. We got to clip that one. Clip that.
You are made for a reason, but only you can take action. You have to have action. And that's why action is a formula for my GRASP method, GRASP.
Yep.
You have to put in the work because I'll go back to the Science of Getting Rich book. There's a quote in there that says, "An ounce of doing is worth more than a pound of theorizing." You have to put in the work. And, you can go to meetings after meetings after meetings. Guess what? The person that's going to get on top is the person that didn't do the meetings. The person that's actually working on it has failed 3 times and now goes to market before you finish your first meeting. That's taking action. It's not afraid of failure. It's about inspired action for a purpose. And you have to not procrastinate on your dreams, because tomorrow is not promised. It just is not.
Yeah. Weight broke the wagon on that thing. And I agree. It's knowledge and skills. And the only way that you're going to elevate both of those, because that's where you're a true professional, when you can elevate your knowledge and your skills, but it's by work ethic. There's no easy way. And I say this a lot, and I'm going to say it again. Listeners out there going, oh, he's going to say this again, but it sets the stage. To work smarter, you have to work harder in order to earn the right to work smarter.
Yes.
Right? You have to work harder in order to earn the right to work smarter. And that comes, with the skills and the knowledge and everything else. And that's when I say smarter. But it really is true. And you hit it on the head there. You just got to put in the work.
That's another thing about ruthless consistency. I might not be the smartest person in the room, but I can outwork anybody.
Yes.
And there's a lot of bad advice out there. There's a lot of bad advice that says you just need to work smarter, not harder. Put in 2 hours a day. Take it easy. Don't burn out. Again, entrepreneurship's the ultimate personal development and self-realization tool. If you do that, you're not going to have a successful business. An entrepreneur, a true entrepreneur, is willing to put in 80 hours a week on their own business without seeing 1 red cent profit, versus working 40 hours a week for somebody else and having a guaranteed paycheck.
Yes.
Entrepreneurship takes a different level of tenacity. It's not for everyone.
Yeah. And I think what you will find, I agree, it's not for everybody. It's just not, right? There are certain people who need certain structure or certain things but really what it comes down to is, I didn't mind putting in the work. You have this fire that burns. I will burn it out till 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm good doing that. I'm not saying that's for everybody. I'm just saying, I just remember in the early stages of starting organizations where I'd wake up at midnight and I'd be working till like 2 or 3 because I just had something burning in me. And I wasn't like doing it. I was doing it because I wanted to get done, but more importantly, I was motivated. Like, it wasn't work to me. It was like I felt like I was growing.
Yep. And that's how it should be. It should be the fire that lights you up and gets you out of bed every morning. It's purpose. It's a level of purpose. It's passion, right? And if you don't have purpose and passion, find it.
Yeah.
Go seek that out. Go find whatever it is that you're purposeful and passionate about. Lean into it, right? Lean into it, whatever that is. And it evolves over time. You don't have to have all the answers. But you lean into things that are purposeful and passionate, things that drive you. And then, ideally things that help someone else, because it's not just about us.
Yes.
Right? You have to focus on what the world needs.
Yeah. I had a guest a while back, who was, he was a senior vice president. He had great younger guy, but really good career, had elevated his career. And one of the things that he said I thought was so impactful is, he would get with professionals that were doing really well earlier in his career. He would get with professionals that were doing really well, and more than just him coming to him and to them and just asking, hey, what kind of advice could you give me? He would ask that, but he'd also say, what can I help you with? Is there something? So bring something to the table if you're going to be engaging with somebody who maybe you want to learn from, right? And I thought that was just a really good perspective of not only just getting something from somebody, but helping. And that's where the transition of my career has been too, is like all these years of knowledge and experience. It's like, if you and I can just touch one person on this podcast, like that's it. this show that we're doing right now makes it all worth it.
I love that. Well, it is about giving, and the first thing I think of every single morning, my first thought is, who do I get to give to today? It's not what can I get from somebody.
Yeah.
You have to transition from being the effect to the creator.
Yeah.
And the only way you can do that truly is if you give. So I have a keynote, and it's become my business philosophy. Give first, give often, and do it with love. Genuine love for that other person, because you love them and you want them to succeed. And you do this philosophy, you do this enough in life and business, you won't have a shortage of customers. It's actually not possible. I think the reason so many businesses fail is because they have a taking philosophy. What can I take from people today? What
Yeah.
can I get? What can I scheme? It's not about that.
No.
It's about adding so much value that you're the undisputed authority.
Make yourself, and I say to this out there too, so some of you who maybe in a corporate job, right? And again, there's no right or wrong. Corporate world, it wasn't for you and I,
Right.
but it might be for somebody else. But what I say is, make yourself so valuable. Like, do the extra work when you're not asked. Okay, stay the extra time. Put in the extra effort. You don't need to be compensated. You don't need to send an email. Hey, I did this over the last 2 months or 3 months. I'm looking for a raise on this. They know. Believe me, they know.
Yeah.
So put in the work and make yourself more valuable. And if it's not going to be there, it's going to be somewhere else where the universe is going to work with you. So I think it's an important point. So you're very successful, okay? And we know that there's a price to pay for that. Okay? There's the entrepreneurial struggle to get things going. And then when you get things going, you want to elevate them. So there's this chance of burnout, right? And also balance. Burnout and balance are two things that are very, you have to be in tune with.
Mm-hmm.
How do you keep that balance? What's maybe some of your strategies and feedback so that you're not getting tilted too much one way or another? And it happens. Listen, if you're an entrepreneur, it's going to happen. It's going to. But you've just got to be aware, self-awareness, as we talked about. Any strategies or suggestions, or have you gone through this and can you relate to it? And I'd love to hear your feedback on this.
I've gone through burnout a couple of times, right? And once was in my corporate world, and then once was my own self-doing. So I've been there on both sides of the fence. What changed my life and why, again, knock on wood, I don't think I'll ever experience burnout again. So if you just heard that and you're like, what does that mean? How can you predict? Going back to gratitude, I bookend my day with gratitude. So before my feet hit the floor, I flicker of my eyes open, I close them back, say a prayer, say an expression of gratitude, whatever it is, and then let your feet hit the floor. So that's how your day starts. Then before you go to bed, it's the exact same thing. You bookend your day. Then before you go to bed, you have a prayer and expression to gratitude. If you do that for 30 days, it's not possible for you not to change your life.
Yeah.
So I don't think I'll ever go through that again because I have an incorporated practice now. And again, going back to my grasp method, it was a method that I used to develop confidence, but it's more than that. It's success in all areas of life. So there is no burnout because I'm a giver. One of the realizations I've recently had is you're only really drained when you're taking.
Yeah.
If you're a giver, you have such a natural energy. It's like you're your own generator. When you're a taker, oh, you'll get your energy drained very quickly. So anybody who's listening to that, pay attention to your energy. What is your energy telling you? If you feel like you're drained after something, What did you take from that situation? And then reflect back on it and say, how can I give next time? And see if your energy changes.
It's so profound right there. So good. The most energized I am, I wouldn't say the most energized, but I'm super energized when I come off workshops, I come off podcasts like this, when, we're just giving.
Yeah.
You're giving to people. You're helping somebody professionally become stronger, personally become stronger. Gosh, that's such a great point. Never thought
Yeah. It's so simple, but it's so true. So you think about that, and again, when you're a taker, even if you give and then expect something, you're a taker. You have to give without expectation of anything in return, which is one of the hardest things a human can experience, really.
Yeah.
So it's a level of self-mastery. Once you get to this level of self-mastery, burnout doesn't really exist in this realm. So I don't relate to burnout anymore.
It's so good. It's so
It's
good.
it's so powerful, and it's the simplest advice, and somebody listening to this may say, "Oh, that's so simple. That's too simple." The simplest truth is always simple. It's always so simple. There can never be an easier explanation than 1 + 1 = 2. It's simple. It's a formula. It doesn't need to be simplified anymore.
I always like to ask this question of people who are successful and have that, obviously you have the self-awareness and you're just so in tune with it. Outside of, how you start your day and how you end your day, are there any other routines that you would recommend for anybody during their day to keep that confidence, keep that power, and that perseverance? Anything that you recommend? What do you do? What do you do personally? Actually, I want to hear that.
Well, I have, instead of listening to a lot of music, I play coursework. And I don't just listen to courses or work with courses that are teaching me something about business. I think that's a really big mistake.
Okay.
One of the things that I always make sure to incorporate in my day is spirituality and spirituality practices. I like to learn. I'm a really big advocate of continuous learning. And part of, you know, being a successful entrepreneur or business owner is, of course, you have to learn the technical skills. But what did we already learn from this conversation? That technical skills are 15% of your financial success. So you have to develop, your other body, which is your spiritual body. And if you only focus on one area of your life to make success, what's going to happen is you may get success. In fact, you probably will. You may get an immense amount of success, but what also could happen? You might also be unfulfilled. You might also lose it all, right? You
Yeah.
might also have a circle of friends around you that want everything you've got and that are only your friends because of what you have. You might also look around and say, you know what, I don't have anything. And you could have all the cars, all the houses, all that stuff. So it's really important to be a well-rounded person and to lean into things that interest you, whatever that is. If you're interested in science, listen to science, listen to podcasts on it, listen to TED Talks on it, listen to courses on it. Do something with your brain every single day that challenges you, that's not just about business, and you'll be a much more well-rounded person, and customers love it.
Yes.
I actually have a thing. So my thing is, if we can't talk and have like an open conversation about, just like we're doing now, I don't know if I want to work with you. And it's nothing against that person. I have to feel like there's a real synergy and connection. And my clients are the same. They like that reciprocal connection. They like continuous learning. So this is important because it makes you somebody that people just want to gravitate to and talk to.
So true. And I think, even you and I talking right away, even the first time we got on, when we connected for the first time, there's just this just level of connection and understanding that you get when you surround yourself with like-minded people. It is not a by chance thing. I mean, it's you will connect with people if you're doing good things in life and you're trying to grow and you're trying to become stronger in certain areas of your life. You're going to you'll be able to, when you do connect with people, you'll be able to connect stronger with people who are aligned with that. Ones who are not, sometimes that connection might not be there, but you can always just, there are these kind of moments that go off where you're like, oh yeah, there's this connection here. And that's truly where I think it starts.
That's right. I love that.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
really good. This has been a fantastic I want to ask, okay, because for the listeners out there, like, transformation in my career right now is I'm really going to start getting intentional about doing keynote speaking events. I want to get on TED Talk, because I want to talk. How did you get on TED Talk? Like, what was that experience? I know it wasn't someone just called you on the phone and said, "Hey, Terry, you want to be on TED Talk?" There was things leading up to it, but talk to me about that experience.
Nobody ever believes me when I say this story. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. I've since written a book about it. So I've put it all out there, and it's in there. It's on Amazon. So the secret's out. But yeah, so it started with my book, right? And that was in 2023 when I published my book. The crazy part was my book wasn't even published when I landed my TEDx talk.
Okay.
So that's the part nobody believes. I was also on Fox News in New York talking about this book before it was published. That's another part nobody believes, but it was true. In fact, I had to print out on a actual desktop printer the cover and put it on True Entrepreneur, put it on a book, another book, just so I can have, show my book on Fox News. Because literally it was a Word document on my desktop.
Oh my goodness, that's great.
Well, I was, in the process of writing my book, and I was talking to my friend, and
What's the name of the book? I'm sorry. What's the name of the book? So,
sure. My first book is How to Grasp Confidence and Own Your Power.
okay, great. Okay.
So I was maybe 3-4 months into writing my book, and I was talking to my friend, and he said, I think you have a TEDx idea, a TED-worthy idea. And I was like, okay. Well, I'd never thought of myself as a TEDx speaker, but I was like, you think so? You think it's pretty solid, do you? And he said, it's pretty solid. That's a really good idea. And I was like, okay. So just do what I do and network. 3 weeks later, I got accepted.
Oh my goodness.
Wasn't a book yet. It was a Word document on my desktop. I got accepted into TEDx. The week later, I was on Fox News about a book that's not even published yet. And that's really the true story. You can't make that up.
No, you can't. But again, you putting it out there.
Yeah.
You just put it out to the universe. You'll be amazed how stuff will come your way.
And I reached out to one organizer, and that was it. It was over.
Unbelievable. That's great.
You have to be a good networker.
You got to make sure you have some contacts. Listen, you got to make sure, and not even that, but that's the idea again of waking up each day, having gratitude, understanding what you want to come to your life, how you're going to affect other people's lives, okay, how you're going to serve, and I think everything just else kind of falls into place. What a great way to wrap this up.
I love that.
Yeah. What's next for you?
Oh gosh, I'm a TEDx speaker, coach, and curator now as well. So I'm involved on it from both sides. I think I might want to do another TEDx talk. We'll see. They're a lot of work.
Yeah.
I've got another book publishing this year. I'll have a TV appearance coming up in next month or so. So, it's just about continuous improvement. And like I said, just the art of not giving up.
Yeah, that's it. Consistency is such a great word. And again, I think that's another difference between good professionals and personal and professional growth. Between good and great professional growth is consistency. And It's a great word to end this on. So listen, Tara, I want to thank you for being here on this show. It has been a fantastic interview. I think our listeners are going to get a lot out of this. I'm excited to stay in touch with you because I think we're gonna do some stuff together. And I just want to thank you for being here. So as I always say, everybody, wealth, health, success to all of you out there. Go get a win, no matter how small or how big it is. Go get one and then go stack one. And this show is really getting great momentum because of guests like you. So thank you, Tara, for being here today. And everybody, we will see you next time.
Unfinished Business Podcast Show with your host, David Sliman.